Hi, it's Ashley. So I define violence now as anything, whether it's verbal and action, um, in a way that it harmfully affects somebody, long term or short term. So by this I mean, you know, like I had the shooting last year at UNC Charlotte, or maybe it was the year before, and from that, I have a lasting impact of being afraid of people with guns in stores or hearing sirens. And, mentally, you can think of people being scared to socialize. They're being scared to do certain actions or dressing certain ways because of the harassment that they have felt. And I compare this to my first video because I said it was an action that just left a mark in the future and in a negative way. And I think now I've found it to be more defining of how it can impact somebody and what type of effects it can leave on them. I think my definition has changed just because I've gained more knowledge and I'm more aware of not just the broad terms, but looking at more specifics we have learned throughout this class, as well as how it affects different communities and cultures throughout the world. So along with this, in the last video, I talked about that I think a lot of the causes in the world of violence come from hate and feelings within and problems not being solved. I still believe that's true in the way that our intra-communication and violence and personal conflicts do stem from unsolved issues and conflicts, and the feelings that go behind them, of course, sometimes make movements and actions irrational and not thoroughly thought through and maybe regretted later. But I also think violence comes from, sometimes people just not knowing how to communicate that, which is also somewhat what I said last time. In one of my classes, I am having to do where I'm looking at water distribution and humanitarian aid, and there's anger and there's violence outbreaks just because people are trying to be able to provide the bare necessity of water. So for me, when I see that, I'm like, okay, it's not because they have some anger, aggression, or something happened to them. It's they had a natural disaster and they're just trying to survive and keep hold of their families and keep the community together out of love. So I think I've also seen the different aspects of how that is caused, not just by something internally wrong or anger, but also kind of out of love and wanting to help others. So overall, my perspective has stayed the same in a lot of ways in the term of I, do believe that violence comes from within, and it comes either out of fear or anger or guilt or even sometimes happiness or trying to help others and love. But I think I've also gained a lot of knowledge on the intensity and the depth in which it comes, and how it comes. So, you think it's just sometimes hurtful words or actions or, physical violence. But I think also violence now also, whether that's terrorism or even natural disasters that cause harm on people. And I think that I have been able to see more of a broader scale while still being able to dive deep into knowing how it affects people personally and as a group and how people respond to that and react. And in addition to what I've kind of already noted on, I wanted to add that what I think in the modern world, the aspects that cause violence, I think has a lot to do with our different beliefs and our different views on life and the world and how the world is working. I think that, I've seen information on a white supremacist who went into an Islamic church in New Zealand and made it the largest terrorist attack in this country's history. So I really think that it also has to do with our own views and our own beliefs, and not just about getting angry, but some people feeling that what they're doing is right and it's okay and it's going to help in some way. The same way, you see with wars, different countries fighting because they both believe they're right, and then they could argue all day saying why each other's is wrong. It's different perspectives. So I think that's also something, is being aware of your views and how it affects the outlooks on certain things, and how other people's views can impact their responses.